Hey, Red Letter Disciples, it's Zach Zender with a fresh episode for you today. Hey, this podcast is to help you become a greater disciple of Jesus. We're having really Lutheran Church Missouri Synod focused conversations this particular time, hoping that we can become great disciples in our own church body. And so I'd love to hear your feedback on these conversations and future guests. You can email me at hello@redletterchallenge.com. Today, we're bringing on President Brian Friedrich. He's the president of Concordia St. Paul, been there since 2020. Prior to that, serving 30 years in Concordia University in Nebraska, the great state of Nebraska. But we talked to Brian about how things are going at Concordia St. Paul, what he's seeing in Gen Z and the young adults that are there right now. We talk about online education and how amazing that's been and how we need to continue to be a church body that is innovative and seeking new ways to reach as many people as we can. Plus, we talk about how we can grow importance and awareness of these Concordia universities that we are a part of. And so it's an amazing conversation. I know you're going to love hearing from him today. Today's episode is brought to you by Red Letter Living. We create resources outside of this podcast, including this podcast, but other resources especially are our 40-day challenges. Lately, we just came out with Giving Challenge and Giving Challenge Kids. It's a turnkey 40-day experience where your church is going to learn about generosity from Jesus himself. Every day has words of Jesus, and we really challenge people to be generous like Jesus. And when they do, they're going to find the joy that they were made for. Churches just finished for the very first time going through it and saw some amazing returns. They saw offerings go sky high. They saw individuals that were changing their giving percentage, looking at their wills. Teenagers were being generous. I had two different barbers that, unbeknownst to each other, they each decided to give free haircuts. There were multiple gift cards given out to families in need. Like, it's amazing to watch a generosity movement begin. So if that sounds appealing to you, or you want to raise funds, you want to start a capital campaign, we would love to work with you. You can go to redlettergiving.com and you can find out all about this 40-day challenge. New Year and Lent are right around the corner and a great time to start the year by being generous. And so let's do this. Hey, thank you so much for all the feedback and comments. It's really helpful. And at the end of the day, I want to use this podcast and steward it to help as many people as possible. So I'd love to hear your feedback. You can drop it in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. If you're a Apple Podcasts or Spotify person, please feel free to throw a rating in there to let us know how things are going and how we can better serve you. And again, my email is hello@redletterchallenge.com if you have any thoughts, feedback, or questions. So let's get to today's episode with Brian Friedrich. Let's do this. All right, I am pumped for today's episode of Red Letter Disciple. Got an amazing guest. We have the president of Concordia St. Paul, Brian Friedrich, on with us today. And so welcome, Brian, to the Red Letter Disciple. Tell me how things are going in the great state of Minnesota today.
It is a gorgeous day, Zach, and I'm pumped to be on your podcast.
Very good. Yeah, we're thrilled to have you, and I get to see you a few times a year because your daughter, right, attends King of Kings here in Omaha, Nebraska, and so we see you quite often. And I feel like, though, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you're excited to see your daughter and her husband Phil, but you're really here to see the grandkids and to watch them grow up and play sports, right? Isn't that what it's about?
You know it. You know it. We learned that early on when we would take our kids to Lori's parents. They could give two hoots about us once we got the kids there. Once we got the kids there, then it was all about the grandkids. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we love your family, Phil and Leah and their kiddos, and they bring so much joy and just incredible volunteers, incredible people that serve not only at King of Kings in that ministry, but also serve at our school here in Omaha at Concordia. So, man, really honored to have you on, Brian. And so, give us an update, like what's happening right now at Concordia University St. Paul. What's bringing you the most joy on campus these days?
That's a long answer.
Well, we got time.
We got time. Good. So many things. We are nearing the end of our fall semester, and it's been an incredible semester. So we have the third largest total enrollment in our history.
Cool.
We have the largest traditional undergraduate enrollment in our history. We're serving more church work students than we have in more than a decade. So those are all wonderful things. We just completed the fiscal audit, and for the 16th year in a row, We finished in the black. Our endowment is moving past 70 million, and the fundraising campaign we are in is about 53.5 million toward a goal of 55 million. So really, really exciting. And earlier this fall, we had our first formal visitation from the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, passed with flying colors. So lots and lots of great things. So fun.
Amazing. All of that is attributed to your leadership, right?
No. I mean, the way it goes, Zach, is if I haven't been gone from campus for a while, people will say, Brian, when you're gone, things seem to go better. Don't you have someplace to go?
Right. I kind of get that at my house a little bit. My wife Allison's like, you know what? When you leave, things are a little bit calmer around here. So, when's your next trip? And it's funny. It's like the 2-day mark. She's like, 2 days is great for you to be gone, but the third day, like, you need to be back by the third day. And so something switches on that. But no, that's wonderful though, to be an effective leader and to trust your team and to be able to do what you're doing. And I love hearing those numbers. And we'll talk about kind of maybe the reasons behind some of that great enrollment and some other factors, because I'd love to dive deeper into that. What would you say? Because obviously, sorry, I'm going to throw my colors out here. I'm from the state of Nebraska, so Concordia Seward's in my backyard, so I love them. But I didn't go there. I attended Concordia, Wisconsin, so I'm a rival. I'm an enemy of yours in many ways. But no, I'm not. But what makes the mission? Does every Concordia University have kind of a part of the mission that sets you apart from the other Concordia universities?
Zach, I often say it this way in generic form. If a student chooses one of the Concordias, they can't make a bad choice.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they can make a better choice. They can make a better choice. So you made a choice, I made a choice. So who's better? I don't know. But, one of the things that is amazing to me, and you know that I served at Concordia, Nebraska for about 30 years. We'll probably talk about that. But one of the things that's amazing to me about Concordia University St. Paul is we have had literally, save one word, the same mission statement for more than 30 years. So I'm the third president that's lived with this same mission statement. So that's kind of cool. So our mission is to prepare students for thoughtful and informed living, for dedicated service to God and humanity, for the enlightened care of God's creation, all within the context of the Christian gospel. The only word that's changed in 30 years was college when Concordia became a university. So we switched out college, plunked in university, where we go.
There you go. That's pretty good. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Don't fix it. Yeah, I think when we what are some of the differentiating marks of the institution? When John Nunes was president of Concordia, New York, he liked to talk about charism. And he said, many times Catholic universities have these different charisms that make them distinct. I would say some of the things that make CSP distinct within the Concordia University system are things like, we're the largest Lutheran university in the United States. We're the second largest private university in the great state of Minnesota. We have 3 physical campuses. So the main campus is here in St. Paul, but we also have a campus in Denver, a campus in Portland. We are the most urban of all of the Concordias. We are, at least when you look at sticker price and what we're able to do with financial aid and scholarship, we're the most affordable. And finally, students who study here on a trad undergraduate basis are attending a university with a demographic that looks like the world in which they will serve at some point in time.
That's amazing.
So those are some of the charisms or defining differences with CSP.
So great. And yeah, you mentioned that, you spent 3 decades leading and being a part of Concordia in Nebraska, the great state, from 1991 to 2020. And so when you look back at that time period, what were some of the biggest leadership lessons that you learned that you're taking with you to CSP?
So at the top of my list is those from whom I learned. And I just had some incredible mentors. And those mentors, both at the university, so President Waltz, who I worked with for 13 of the 14 years he was president there was probably at the top of my list, but there were so many others. And one of the things as I reflect on that experience is literally how much they poured into me. I needed a lot of help, let me tell you.
We all do, right?
And thank God these wonderful partners were willing to do that. I also learned a lot about the importance of listening. Mother often said, Brian, God gave you two ears and one mouth. Use them in that proportion. So I learned that. I also learned God's abundance. I mean, we can work and work and work, and we did. But ultimately, God's abundant blessings. I mean, when I think back, wow. If I could have said in 1991, here are the things I think that could or should happen at Concordia, Nebraska, I would have been so much on the short list. I mean, God's abundance was just overwhelming. Just feels like you're standing under a waterfall. And it does here too. I mean, that's one of the similar things. God is such an abundant God and blesses in so many, many ways.
That's great. And so at Nebraska, right, you had several roles, but you were the president. How long were you the president of Concordia, Nebraska?
15 and a half years.
15 and a half years. Awesome. And God did some amazing things in those years. How did you know, like, I'm curious because, there's a lot of listeners that are called workers, pastors, DCEs, and there are often times when other situations come up or potential calls that come our way. How did you know that it was the right time, right? You'd spent 15 and a half years as president, and you're going to be president of another university and kind of the same system. But how did you know that, like, what were some determining factors that kind of led you to leave the most amazing state and to go into the, the depths of Minnesota? No bias there at all, right? Obviously.
The craziness that is Minnesota. Yeah, no, I understand completely. Oh, it's such a good question. And I guess the simple way for me is to say that God made it abundantly clear that he wanted me to go to Concordia University, St. Paul. I wasn't fleeing from anything. I was going to something. Lori and I had no intent, no desire to leave Nebraska, to leave Concordia, to leave Seward. We absolutely loved it. And we still do. We still do. We miss relationships. We miss friendships. Concordia, Nebraska is like no other Concordia in our university system. So just an incredible honor and privilege to serve there. Maybe one of the first indicators is Lori and I are with our family on a family vacation in Cabo. And my phone rings, and I look, and the name of the person comes across. And I said, I know that person. I've known him for like 30 years. I better take this phone call. Well, it was the chair of the board calling me. And I thought, well, what the heck does he want? Well, he said, we'd like to know if you might be interested in serving at CSP. I said, look, I'm on vacation.
Right.
And so it went. But as we explored this, every time we said, no, we don't think so, God said, maybe you should think about that again. And another door opened and another door opened. And through that process, it became evident to us that maybe at this point in our lives of ministry, God had another thing for us to do. So it was a challenging and hard decision because we were leaving so many things that we love so much, including family and grandchildren. And our daughter reminds us, well, remember, Mom and Dad, you left. You left.
Right. Yeah, it's your fault.
Your fault, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's such beauty in that, though, of like, and I love that about our theology, that we have a God that, has remained fully in control and seated on his throne, and yet he's intimately involved. And so when we think about the world's problems or our own personal problems or our synod's issues, like, I love the fact that we have a God that is not so distant that he can't come to us and meet us and give us wisdom and guidance along the way. And so that's pretty awesome. Are you still are you a Husker fan, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're preaching the gospel up in Minnesota still.
Right. Yeah.
The good news.
Man, how can we not beat the Golden Gophers? How that's our worst game so far. It's awful.
I know.
It's awful.
I know. I was feeling a little bit of hope until that game. It's like, oh, nope, no hope. No hope remains.
No.
That's really
And I
great.
think the other thing, Zach, kind of to maybe put a bow on this, one of the other great learnings is that this is not about me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes it's possible to think, well, this institution, if I
Hmm.
leave, it's going to fall. No way. It is not about me. It's about God getting done through cracked, broken vessels, the work
Yeah.
He needs to have done. And when I see the great things that are happening at Concordia University, Nebraska now, I'm saying, praise the Lord.
Amen.
The new leadership that's there with President Bull and the great work he's doing, it's just so exciting. So, God be praised.
That's amazing. And I think that's a good word for all of us, that we are, we are stewards of our lives and our ministries and our institutions, our colleges, our churches, all of it. And so how can we do our best in the years that we have? And so you literally went there in January of 2020. And what, a couple months later, everything changed. Like, how, tell me a little bit about that from a university president perspective, what those first few months were like.
So here's kind of the lineup. So the first thing that happened was in February. So I get here in January. Um, in February, Concordia Portland announces its closing.
Mm.
So we had the opportunity to work hard to acquire its nursing program. And we were working like crazy to bring the nursing program here and also the law school. So we were like, had all these accreditors to work with and all these details. We're working. So that was February. Then March 13th, COVID hits and everything closes down. And then May hits and George Floyd is killed. So in
Mm.
the first
In
five
Minnesota, yeah.
in Minnesota, yeah, just down there,
Yeah,
just kind of
geez.
like down the street in Minneapolis, just a few miles from campus. So in the first 5 months, these three really
Yeah.
significant things happen. One of the things that's a couple of things that are a little bit funny about that. One is my inauguration was scheduled for April. Well, that didn't happen. Well, why don't we do it in the fall? Well, that sounds good. Well, it didn't happen. So I didn't have an inauguration.
So I don't know. Are you
I
even
don't know if I'm
official? Does it?
legit or not. I
Yeah,
could be an imposter, Zach.
that's wild. But amazing. So in the midst of all that, that had to be a really challenging first year. What were some of the key things that kind of got you guys and the university through it?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, it's amazing to come into an institution where everything's going well and it's flourishing. It's another thing to come into an institution or organization where it's in the midst of huge challenge. And I've done both, and I think coming into an institution where there's huge challenge is an incredible way to see how an institution responds. And this institution, unbelievable. The leadership here and how the leadership and the faculty staff here understand role and responsibility and who's going to do what and how do we work together to achieve. So in many ways, I was like in a back seat just observing the incredible work of the those who had been here long before I was here do
Yeah.
really good work.
Yeah. I suppose it's, a fast track to see kind of what
That's
leadership is made of there with all the pivots and changes. And so,
So the funny thing, so one funny thing is
yeah.
the state of Minnesota required, if you were going to be on campus, and I think there were like five of us from March till May wandering around on campus, you had to have a letter that you could pull out if anyone stopped and said, why are you on campus? And essentially the letter said, this person is an essential
Essential.
employee. That's the first and only time anyone's ever said I was essential. It's great. I framed that thing.
Nice. So you don't know if you're legitimate because no inauguration, but you are essential.
I am essential.
So
That's right. I'm hanging on to that.
there you go. I like it. So let's talk about, what's going on in the Concordia University system. And over the last decade, I know there's a lot of us that, look on from the outside that are challenged when we see sister campuses close. You mentioned Portland and New York already. Of course, Ann Arbor and what's been happening there, and our beloved Texas seems is out of the system. And so I'd love to know kind of what are key learnings for you, maybe from each of these situations, that as you're kind of navigating and seeing this, like how is that? Does it strengthen you at Concordia St. Paul? Are there things that you're looking at, or yeah, just talk to me a little bit about what that's like as a Concordia University System president to see some of these universities close and what you're learning.
So one of the for better for worse things, it's not just the Concordias. So we're part of a much larger ecosystem, and I think the word that is important for everyone to think about is fragility. Higher education, perhaps now more than ever, is very fragile. It's very fragile. I used to say, probably until 2026, that the only institutions that weren't that fragile are the top 100 with these massive endowments. But even in recent months, we have seen the upheaval at those institutions when federal funding for grant research was pulled away, and the incredible reductions. I mean, think of an institution like Washington University in St. Louis. I mean, they laid off like 300 people, and those things are seemingly unheard of. But I think in this larger ecosystem of higher education, fragility is a good reminder for all of us. In the last decade, there are more than 130 private institutions that have closed. That's one a month. That's one a month. And that doesn't take into consideration for-profit institutions that have closed, public institutions that have been merged. So we're kind of in a time of upheaval within higher education. I think one of the learnings for me, Zach, is that it's really important for institutions, generally and specifically, to think about, this sounds so businesslike, but it's so important because no margin, no mission, but to think about revenue streams and where does revenue come from. And one of the challenges across the industry is when institutions have a singular revenue stream and they are banking only on that, it just becomes super, super challenging. So recruitment's competitive, and then discounting takes place. It just goes on and on and on. But being able to innovate and diversify revenue streams is really important.
Have you guys been doing that then at Concordia St. Paul?
We have. A couple of months ago, the CFO told me we probably have 70 some revenue streams feeding into our revenue budget. Yeah. So I think many times people think of colleges and universities in the context of 18 to 22-year-olds, and that's all you do. Well, we do that and a whole lot more. And so thinking about that is really, really important, and monitoring it is essential.
Yeah, and one of the things you said that I don't think I've heard a lot about is, and again, overall, it's frustrating to see some of these universities that we love so much, no longer be around. But it sounds like there's a thread from Portland that y'all have. You're now doing a nursing school with them. Is that what you said? Tell me a little bit about that, because I don't think that's getting said enough, and that's good news in the midst of bad news. There's at least some good news, I would say, right?
So we, depending on the year, Concordia University St. Paul, through our nursing program in Denver, prepare either the first most or second most nurses for the state of Oregon. So we have over 300 nursing students in Oregon. In fact, in a couple of weeks, I'll go out for the graduation, and we probably graduate 3 times a year, 80 to 90 students each year. So what's that, 240, 250 graduates in the nursing program? Yeah, so it's really exciting. And that gives us kind of a toehold for thinking about what other academic programs can we deliver in, whether it's in Denver, whether it's in Portland, whether it's here. I mean, all in, we're probably preparing 800 nursing students right now. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
And that's through the 3 campuses locally there in St. Paul, Denver, and Portland.
Yeah, and we have a traditional nursing program for students who want to start as after their high school senior year and go 4 years. And we have an accelerated Bachelor of Science in Nursing for students who have some academic work in that area, to have all the prereqs, and then fill it out with this intense 17-month nursing experience, which I don't know how they do it, but they do
Yeah,
it.
that's cool.
Well. So, yeah, it's very
That's
cool.
awesome. I love that. So with the fragility that you're speaking about, and of course us as a church body, seeing the negative side of that fragility, what gives you confidence then that Lutheran education has a meaningful future over the next couple of decades?
Well, in part, it's history. Lutheran higher education, specifically, Lutheran education generally, is such an incredibly exciting place to be. I believe some of the very best leaders in our church are within Lutheran education. It is remarkable to hang out with folks who are serving in our secondary schools, our elementary schools, and to think with them about the innovation they're doing, the Christ-centered education they're delivering, how they're caring for individuals and families. So I think one thing is this incredible leadership resource we have within our church that does Lutheran education exceedingly well. The other is really the Sunday school answer, and it's Jesus.
Amen. Come on.
And to see his Spirit at work on our campuses is absolutely thrilling. I saw it at Concordia, Nebraska. I see it here. My fellow presidents tell me and give us anecdotes about what's happening there. It is amazing. It's amazing.
That's awesome. So you talked about two things: innovation and Jesus. And so Jesus is going to be with us always, and I think that's amazing. But talk to me a little bit about the innovation side, because I think as a pastor myself, I've always kind of been wired entrepreneurially, always been bivocational, even as I've kind of served in roles in churches. And I love when I hear and see innovation. And so I'd love to hear kind of what are some of the innovation or strategic shifts you guys have made at Concordia St. Paul that maybe the rest of us can learn something from.
Great. So here's one. About 40 years ago, Concordia realized that there was an opportunity to serve more than traditional age students. So it is, and I don't have on the top of my head the number, but the number of students, people living in our country today that have some college but no degree. So 40 years ago, Concordia was among the very first leaders to develop a program that would help working adults earn a degree in a non-traditional way. So we were at that, we've been at it for 40 years. One of the things that's changed over time is from face to face. In fact, we used to go to Rochester and Duluth and all these different site locations. Our faculty went to students who would gather there and study in cohorts. Well, as the internet expanded and the ability to serve students online increased, we went online. So we have, in addition to our traditional undergraduate students that study here, we also have an online undergraduate program. And students tell us we want to study in our jammies when we want to study. And so you respond to that. That's part of the innovation. So we have literally thousands of graduate students who are online, and the education they're getting is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And the other part of that, maybe we'll come back to this, is the opportunity we have to integrate faith into the classroom. So it's one thing to do that face-to-face, but then to see how it can be done online is fabulous. And the stories we have about how that's impacted the lives of students for eternity is so exciting. So that's one. Essentially, how do we best serve the students who are choosing us? And we've learned that online is one fantastic way to do it. Another one, Zach, is partnerships. So we have partnerships with all kinds of different entities to deliver education. So we have, for example, a program in sonography, and we deliver some of that here. We have a program that enables students with an institution called Century College. So we deliver some of the didactic work. They deliver the lab work. So it's partnerships is another thing. A third thing is we value experience and education that students bring to us. So we're very transfer friendly. We don't tell students, yeah, you didn't take English 101 here. You have to retake that. We say, no, you took English 101 at an accredited institution. We're going to accept that. So those are some of the kinds of innovations that we've had. And then again, to take our programs to these other major metropolitan sites, Denver, Portland, on it goes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna just jump right to it because there's a lot of talk in our synod right now around pastoral formation and how to form pastors, and I think the 3 or 4 things that you just mentioned that are working really well for your context. A lot of us are banging the drum of like, we've got to figure out a way to do this with pastors. And, you mentioned serving, how do we serve students? And we found that online is not the only, but a really effective way. We look for partnerships and we look to, create an experience around that education and replicate that. All of those things seem like they're working well for Concordia in St. Paul. And so a lot of us are asking, why can't we do things like that when it comes to forming pastors? I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts on that. Is that something that we ought to consider? Can we replicate that? Are there differences, limitations, anything around pastoral formation and the ways that you guys are doing, helping people earning degrees in non-traditional ways and being favorable to, transfer? It feels like all of those things that are working for you, I'm going to stereotype and just go the opposite. Those aren't being welcomed with open arms when it comes to the next level of education for pastors. Would you speak into that for a little bit?
With qualification.
Yes, of course.
I can do that. So again, I'm not a seminary president. I'm not a district president. So they have very different seats from which to look at some of these things. What we do know, though, based on research that we've done and is generic across the higher ed industry, is that the ability to learn online is no less effective than the ability to learn in person. So I know for many folks that's been a thing. Well, you can't. No, there's no way the quality is the same. Well, that's not true when you look at the research. So I think that's an important point. One of the realities is, and many faculty who have taught both face-to-face, in person, and online say, one of the differentiating factors is that in a class of 22 students where I'm in front of them, there can be some students who never once engage in a specific way in the classroom. There's always a handful who always have their hands up, always have something to say, but there's many who never say a thing. But in the online, absolutely everyone has to engage. So I think that's point one. Point two is online education is not for everybody. One of the things we're excited about is the opportunity where we can do the both and. So both and. In fact, we've tuned our academic calendar and our curriculum that some students can say, I'm having a full semester and I want to take an intense 8-week online class that's pairing with my other face-to-face in-person classes. So I think this concept of both and, is there something there we could learn from, something there we could experience? One of the things that I've had conversations with over time with seminary presidents is there a way that we could use the universities in a more effective way for pastoral formation? Again, I don't know, but we have some really, really outstanding faculty members, theology faculty members at our institutions. And is there some way Is there some way we could partner, we could do more? One of the things that I've tried to lobby for a long, long time is an advanced standing. So if a student goes through a Concordia, has all of his languages, all of theology courses, is there some way when they go to the seminary that they could receive some type of credit? Again, I don't know what that looks like. I'm not a seminary president. I don't know their accreditation standards. But is there some way they could do that so that they could either work on another academic degree while they're there, they could finish in a shorter amount of time? Let's face it, we need more pastors. We need more church workers. And what accelerants could we explore to that end? Again, another thing that I've pondered on for a long, long time, because I'm a product of the system. Back in the good old days, there really was more of a systematic approach that students were going first to a Concordia and then to the seminary. And now that's changed. So what does that mean? What can we learn from the past that we could infuse into the present? So it's such a rich topic, and hats off to you and many others who are raising the question, how can we do this perhaps even better than we are? Does there have to be only one way? Personally, I don't think there has to be only one way. But again, I've shared numerous caveats. So.
Absolutely. And none of us know what it's like to be in the shoes of, positions of other people in the day that they live right now. And to be leading as a president or seminary president today is very different than it was 10 or 20 or 40 years ago. And so we need to continue to pray for our leaders first and foremost. But at the end of it, I just the phrase that you, or the words you said that I just so resonate with, that I want us to keep a more open-handed posture with, is both and. I feel too many times we're in this either or, and it's one side saying this and another side saying this, and it's like, can we run some experiments and run some tests? And I've heard Jameson Hardy talk about pushing for, and this is about a decade old, I found out, trying to do this. If someone is entering into ministry and going through our Concordia University systems, I was one of those people. Can we streamline the process so that it's not 8 years but 7 years? Right. So I think things like that, we've got to be more open-handed, and let's run experiments, and let's test, and let's use data, and let's use research and objectivity into things that feel very subjective. And so I appreciate your thoughts on that, and let's talk about that initiative from our synod, which I do love, the Set Apart to Serve initiative, to help kind of encourage and identify future church workers. And so tell us a little bit about the Set Apart to Serve initiative and what you're seeing at your campus regarding that.
Right. I love it.
Amen.
I wish it had been in place like 40 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So as I've kind of watched it and participated in it, the place that it is now from the place where it started is really rather remarkable. And when I hear Dr. Bonnick talk about it, he's talking about creating a culture within our congregations that enables all of us to work together to raise up a new generation. So here is kind of the pointing back and forth that I've experienced in my years serving as at a Concordia. Many people saying, well, you Concordias are not preparing enough church work students. Okay. The answer that I don't share, but I think, is, but congregations, you're not sending us enough students. We will prepare. Everyone that you send us, we'll prepare, but we're not getting enough. So here's how I think about that now, Zach. There are, in my opinion, 4 essential things that address this issue of the next generation of church workers being prepared. And there are 3 of those that a university, a Concordia, can address. And we're working hard at CSP to address these. The first is we can control the cost, what we charge students to come and study here. Number 2, we can control the curriculum, what students study when they're here. And then number 3, we can control who we call as faculty to serve here. And in my time at CSP and my past experience at Concordia, Nebraska, we worked all the time and in many ways hit it out of the park. The thing we can't control, Zach, is we can't create students. We can't make up students. So we need this partnership of congregations talking to their kids, encouraging their kids to say, wow, full-time ministry, what an opportunity. I mean, what a great time to be in ministry. It is so exciting what's happening in the world, and having students be equipped and prepared to be sent into the world. I mean, it's so exciting.
That's awesome. I think it's really great. And my hope is that, yeah, as we continue to roll out this initiative and hopefully get it more and more known, that, yeah, we can be having those conversations at an early age with some of our men and boys and girls that are going into men and women, that can be effective for us. And I think it's kind of an interesting time. So I'd like to talk to you about kind of the younger generations, if you will. I saw some good news and I saw some bad news, and I'd like to kind of just dissect it a little bit with you when it comes to what you're seeing, either anecdotally or objectively at CSP. The good news is, gosh, Gen Z is flipping some faith metric trends that have been on decline pretty consistently for decades. And it's early, and we still don't quite know what comes of that, but like there's a real openness to the Bible, to God, to Jesus specifically, and they're showing up actually more frequently than older generations, millennials, Gen X, and boomers. So there's a really interesting, cool thing happening there. At the same time, I did a survey with 1,054 Lutheran leaders, and one of the questions was, what's the top urgent challenge? And there was a list of 12 things. And the one that was chosen the most which is good and bad, is reaching and retaining youth and young adults. It's good because I think people are wanting it. It's maybe not so good because I think people are recognizing, maybe we can do better. And so a Lyman Stone study suggests that up to 80% of LCMS young adults leave by age 20. And so I'm like, man, there's all this good news and this opportunity, but I don't know that are we missing the moment? And so I'd love for you to maybe just speak to that. Like, what are you seeing at CSP that verifies some of this evidence or not? And how can we continue to keep our young people, train them up in the LCMS and continue to keep our church body strong?
I could go down a rabbit track. So if I go down too far, you just bot me.
Well, I gave a lot there, so
Yeah. So the point of the spear for me, Zach, and you know this so well, and your congregation does it beautifully. Relationships matter. Relationships matter. And I think there's all kinds of additional study that would, if we're talking specifically now about preparation church workers, long-term pastors serving in congregations have dramatic impact on the number of young men going on in the pastoral ministry. So relationships matter. And I see that all the time on our campus. Relationships matter. And in fact, part of our innovation, and this gets into all kinds of technology and details, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but what we want our faculty to do more than anything is build relationships with students, because we know that when students have relationships with faculty, personal relationships, they are going to be more successful in completing the course, in completing their degree, and ultimately graduating. So relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. The other, I know when I was growing up, and maybe you had the same experience, but so many people said the youth are the church of tomorrow. Youth are the church of tomorrow. And I think with this generation, that message doesn't quite ring true. And just empowering them, you are the church of today.
Amen.
And there's probably no generation living in our country today that needs the church of today more than Gen Z. And I think that the entrance into that is going to be through relationships. So the more we can empower, equip, and send our Gen Zers to serve and minister to and engage other Gen Zers, it's so important. So one other thing, and this gets further down the rabbit track, Zach, is sometimes I call it the 4 to 6% conundrum. 4 to 6% conundrum. So I've been serving in the Concordia University system, 2 different Concordias since 1991. That's a long
A little bit of time, right?
A little bit of time. And sadly, this 4 to 6% conundrum has been there for more than 30 years. And the 4 to 6% conundrum is this. In any given year, only 4 to 6% of LCMS kids go to LCMS universities. Only 4 to 6%. Now, if we would look at other denominations, other church bodies, we would see a startling different statistic. So sometimes part of the challenge, I think, in our church reaching Gen Z is that we've caricatured our Concordias and said, well, yeah, if you want to go into church work, go there. But if you want a really good education, go here or here or here. So inadvertently, we've sent students to institutions where a Christ-centered Lutheran focus is in no way, and in many times can't be, part of their mission. Can't be. So I love the University of Nebraska, but there's no part of the mission of the University of Nebraska that is going to be Christ-centered and Lutheran. Ain't going to happen. University Chapel in Lincoln's going to do an awesome job, but the university itself, not at all. Not at all. But somehow we've said, look at the Concordias. You could study engineering. It just goes. You can pre-med. The list goes on and on. These are full-service universities, and they have so many things that they can offer. And oh, by the way, you're going to come into a community that will help prepare you not just for church work, but for vocation. For vocation, this integration of faith and life, and I think that's another really important part of Gen Z. Your study on generosity, that as we think about being stewards of the faith and the life God's given us, we're stewards. And how do we help Gen Zers realize that they're stewards of this incredible set of gifts, talents, and abilities God's given them? So anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the reference to Giving Challenge there. That's sweet.
It's one of my favorites.
I love it. Thank you for that encouragement. For clarity, you said that LCMS, it's 4 to 6%. And if we look at other denominations, the numbers would be startling different. Is that they would be sending a higher percentage? Is that, yeah.
Yeah, higher percentage. Well, imagine this. BYU branch that's in Idaho, BYU, Idaho.
Brigham Young, right?
Yeah, Brigham Young, yep. About 96% of their students are Mormon. 96% of their students are Mormon. So at some level, that denomination is saying it's important to go to Brigham Young.
Yeah.
Again, it's not going to be a fit for every student. A Concordia is not a fit for every student. But if the Set Us Apart to Serve initiative, for example, if our congregations, for example, would say, as you consider a Concordia, it's really important for you to have at least one on your list and look at it thoroughly. Yeah,
It's good.
We had the Council of Presidents on campus last week, so it's kind of cool. Council of Presidents, one time a year, meets on a Concordia campus. It's just a great thing. Have that good interaction with them, and almost always they walk away saying, "Wow, who knew? Who knew?"
Yeah.
And I think that's just so important that our church realizes the incredible institutions that they have. I mean, these are the church's schools. So how can the church say, yeah, these are our schools. We're so excited about them and what they're doing and how they're doing it.
That's cool. What percent you likely know for your campus, and if you know for kind of the whole Concordia University system, that'd be great. What percent of folks that come to Concordia St. Paul are not coming from an LCMS background? Do you have any data on that?
So if we just pick on trad undergrad, I would say probably about non-LCMS would be about 90%. It's about 10% of our kids are LCMS. We have a bigger share Lutheran. We're probably 30 to 30 some percent Lutheran living
Yeah.
in the state of Lutheranism.
Okay, that's cool, and I think there's a cool duality to that. So I think what I'm hearing is let's continue to obviously bring more and more awareness to our own LCMS people that there are some great universities to attend, and also recognize that we're serving a lot of folks that are not LCMS, and it's a great opportunity to teach them great theology. And you mentioned vocation. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of our Lutheran theology is what we believe about vocation and what we teach about it, that every role, every title, every sphere of work we can do the work of God. And so I think there's this cool duality of, yeah, let's continue to push inside our church body, but also let's continue to see our Concordia universities as mission fields, where we're reaching people that are coming from different contexts and different backgrounds. And by the way, that's not always clean. That's a little bit messy at times. And let's have grace and patience for our universities that and our faculty that works there to figure out how to best do that. It feels also a little bit more doable, and I don't know what the number needs to get to, but if we're at 4 to 6%, it feels like, what would it look like over the next decade to get to 10%? And 10% doesn't feel crazy, but that's a double, and that feels like that could be doable, right? And I think that could dramatically change the future of our church body if we can just get that right. Anything you want to say to that?
Well, two things. So first, to your first point, and others have used this word, so it is not original with me, but conmissional, confessional and missional at the same time. And that's so important for us because
Both and.
unlike a congregation, Zach, we have these students only for a short time. So our sense of urgency in confessing Christ, living Christ, showing Christ as part of our mission is really important. Maybe we'll get them for 4 years, many times not even 4 years. So the opportunity we have to press in on that is really, really important. As you said, yeah, we have students who are not Christian. And the opportunities we have are few, they're important. So we're going to do everything we can with our mission and confession to at least present the gospel of Jesus. So maybe we're just sowing seeds, right? And maybe those seeds will, at some point, if not now, bear fruit, but we're sowing seeds. And so we need to be about that. The other thing, to your point about increasing the number, doubling the number, so if we could get to 10%, 15%. Here's an amazing thing that happens on our campuses when LCMS kids are here. They get caught up in the best way, in the mission, and maybe they think about their vocation and life service in ways differently than they did before. So, for example, there was a semester when I was at Concordia, Nebraska, where we literally had 20 students change their mind. They came in for a program other than church work, and by the next semester, they said, wow, I could serve the church full time? This is the coolest thing ever. I love to tell the story about Lori. So she went to a high school, public high school in northern Wisconsin, and the recruiter said, would you like to study to be a Lutheran teacher? Lori said, I have no idea, what is that? And so the recruiter explained it to her, and then the recruiter said, and oh, by the way, if you sign up to be a Lutheran teacher as well as public, you get another $100 of scholarship. She said, well, of course I'll do that. and she's been a Lutheran educator her whole ministry. But had that not been an opportunity and someone shared that opportunity with her, she wouldn't have done that. She would probably still be working for, I don't know, some public university, which is a good and godly thing. But she's been a Lutheran school educator for all those years.
That's really cool. And yeah, my hope is that more and more of this would get, like you said, caught in the best way. And it's one thing to have you said you can control the cost, the curriculum, the faculty, and that faculty does pour into the students. But it's another thing when the student body is, the church of today, and they're discipling and helping one another, and you've got real community. that's happening. And I think that feels like a doable thing that we can reach for. I mean, anyone who's listening, especially I know there's a lot of Lutheran leaders that are listening, is how do we get that number up, and so that this can be more infectious and contagious in the best way possible. And so, have you noticed? Obviously, you said earlier our numbers are up in this and this and this, and that's really awesome. And so, what I'm hearing is, you can have a both and approach, and all the things, all the different ways can improve and grow, which is really beautiful. But have you noticed anything specifically? I mentioned the stats about Gen Z, but have you noticed that or seen a sort of fire inside, or a longing, or something that's a little deeper than perhaps what you saw in the last couple of decades?
So this is the way, sadly, I don't spend as much time with students as I would like to. So I don't have like deep relationships with a whole bunch of students. But one of the things that is apparent to me is how our students want to do and live mission now. One of the wonderful things that has been part of the Concordias for maybe 20 years is an event called Beautiful Feet, which is essentially a mission conference. And I'm just inspired by the number of kids who say, yeah, I want to go to that. I want to attend that. I want to learn how better to do that. And another thing that springs to life on our campus is essentially our own version or chapter of Lutherans for Life. And kids are really engaged that they want to say, hey, life's important, and I want to not only learn, but I want to show and I want to witness how important life is from birth to natural death. So, I mean, those kinds of things, yes, because they could be doing all kinds of other things. The other thing that I think is so inspiring to me is that we have 10, in quotes, chapel or worship opportunities every week. And 5 of them are really student-led, student-focused. And students are putting together Bible studies and are inviting their friends to Bible studies. And it's just an amazing thing to see them, in quotes, at work.
That's great. And, not all of us will have day-to-day interaction with a Concordia University, but all of us in our contexts, we have younger people that I think what I'm hearing from you is like, let's get them active. They want to be active. And so let's give them opportunities and open hand and pass the baton and put them in places where their ministry and their gifts can thrive, and at the same time encourage what we're seeing, which is really cool. So I'd love to know, Brian, kind of wrapping up here pretty shortly, but if you could kind of reshape or give vision for the way LCMS in whole thinks about education or leadership development, what would you say to that?
Well, on our campus, we have this very large statue of Martin Luther, and it's now in its 3rd location. And when I was a student here, the students were not necessarily always so kind to it. They had all kinds of different things they wanted to do to the Luther statue. But Luther stayed around. Luther stayed around. The statue, as I said, different locations. One day, one of our now emeritus professors was giving a tour to a student, and he started the tour out by the Luther statue, and the student kind of said, well, what's this? And he said this, and I find this profound. He said, Luther points us to Jesus, and Jesus points us to the world. We're a Lutheran university because Luther points us to Jesus. Jesus points us to the world. And for me, that's not, again, it's not rocket science, it's not new, but for me, just conceptualizing how we do Lutheran education at a higher education level is so important. That's why we're Lutherans, because Luther pointed us to Jesus. The open Bible is there, the scriptures. Grace alone, faith alone, scripture alone, Christ alone. To God be all glory alone. That's just so important as we think about Lutheran education now and until the Lord calls us home.
And that's I think what we're all so doggone passionate about is how in the world do we get Jesus to more people. That's ultimately what this podcast is about. It's about helping us become greater disciples of Jesus, because the world, he's been, first off, way too good in my story than I deserve. And I'm sure you have the same story, right? And all of us do. And so how can we give a better representation and picture of who Jesus really is to the world? And how can we do that in as many ways, as many methods and modes and models as possible? And so I really appreciate just your sense of humility. I thank you for kind of sharing an update on what's going on and how you are navigating a really challenging time. And I love the both and approach that you seem to take with a lot of your answers and questions. And so I just want to encourage you in that and thank you for kind of leading the way bravely in our world. I know it's not easy. Our world's changing so much. And now the younger generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, is having to deal with artificial intelligence, and I'm sure that's been a disruption. Has that been a big disruption for you guys at St. Paul, or how do you deal with artificial intelligence?
I think we're dealing with it pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to see it not as an enemy, but as an opportunity. And when you look at it from that perspective, you can sift and sort pretty easily. So there's tremendous opportunity, again, to back to role and responsibility. So we talked about this minutes ago, but what's the most important role and responsibility, for example, for our faculty? And it's to serve students. So as we do that, how can we use tools like AI to help us better do that? So many people are concerned, well, students are just going to cheat. Well, yes, if you allow them to, but if you really want them to learn, and students are the focus of what we do, we're going to take tools like AI and say, we probably need to assign things differently in the future than we have in present or past. So we try to teach it, take it as an opportunity, Zach,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how can we learn from it? So.
Yeah, and it's a delicate thing. A lot of grace, I think, for everybody dealing with this. There's tools like our phones, like social media, like so many of these things, like online education, if you will, that can be used for good and can be used for harm.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
how do we? But I think we have to engage, though. We've got to engage in those conversations. The world is not going to be without artificial intelligence in 10 years from now, and so better to teach and to kind of help people learn through it, as opposed to avoid it or treat it as an enemy, right?
Right.
Well,
Right.
anything, Brian, that I didn't ask you that you just want to, God put something on your heart to share with those that are listening?
Well, my deep appreciation for you, your ministry, and how you seek to create forums for conversation. Really appreciate that. So thank you, Zach. Thank you
Yeah,
very, very much. God's
I
blessing
appreciate
to
that.
your important ministry and
And this is going to
all
lead
of
on.
us
This,
better know
yeah,
our Jesus.
yeah, and hopefully, if people are listening, this will lead to greater conversations. I think part of it's just understanding a little bit of what's going on and what's happening in our system and at our, across all spectrums. And so, all right, final question: we ask all of our guests if they could challenge our listeners to do one thing this week to be a greater disciple of Jesus. What would you challenge them to do?
To draw on Paul's word from Colossians 3. 3 words. And be thankful. And be thankful.
Amen. Amen. How can we be more grateful for what God is doing? And in the midst of a lot of our world and the challenges that come, there's still a lot of really great things that God is doing and that He's blessing us with. And it sounds like a lot of those are happening at Concordia St. Paul. So thanks for being with us. If people want to connect with you, Brian, or the university, what's the best places to do that?
Sure. First, the university website, and it's just www.csp.edu. And to connect with me personally is my last name, Friedrich, spelled Friedrich, Friedrich, at csp.edu. Or if you want to give me a call, my personal cell is 402-641-1237.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Well, I can't say that I've fully become, I'm still a Falcon from Mequon. Go see
That's
UW.
good.
But I have learned that I can be, loyal to them and also still be really doggone supportive of what you're doing and excited for how you're shaping future leaders. So appreciate you, my man. And it'll be fun to see you when you come into Omaha to see those grandkids here pretty soon, I'm
Thanks
sure.
so much, Zach. Yeah, what a blessing.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Amazing to see and hear all that God is doing at Concordia St. Paul. And I thank Brian for being the leader that he is and being open to innovating and using as many methods as possible to train and reach the young adult. It is something that my prayer, you've heard me before, my prayer is that that would catch on in every level of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, especially and including pastoral formation. So, hey, thanks so much for listening today. Feel free to offer your comments or feedback in the YouTube comments. We're throwing a lot of stuff onto our YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed there, please do that at Red Letter Living. And we'll be back next week for a fresh episode of Red Letter Disciple. And so go be a great disciple of Jesus this week. God bless.